Hey everyone, and welcome back to Millennial Mind. I'm so excited to tell you that I've got a new summer series with a very special guest and one that you all loved when she came on my podcast. Every week, I'm trying to make this podcast better for you, and I only ask for one small, tiny little favor from all of you, which is to press the subscribe or follow button wherever you're watching this. I'm so excited to introduce you to this very special series, so let's get into it.
Shivani.
Rhona.
I'm sorry, my throat, by the way, is still like a little bit, so you've just got to ignore me, but...
I'm ignoring you being water-shaming me, if I'm completely honest.
I'm sorry, right? This girl drinks 3 sips of water and she's like, I'm done for the day. You literally just said to me,
I drank that bottle.
2 litres a day, mate. Literally. We're water organisms, okay? We need to...
Well, it's worked out for me so far, each to their own.
Talk to me in 10 years, pal, when you're my age, okay? So,
I'm going to be 30 this year.
I'm going to be 40
I've survived.
in 4 years. Flipping 4 years.
It's not competition!
Okay, so...
Go on.
Today we're talking about something that is so close to my heart. It's actually, I get a bit emotional about it. If I'm not gonna lie, because I feel that it's something that's created a lot of stigma and taboo. It's a topic that has become more topical recently, but when I did it, I don't think many people were talking about it. It's about egg freezing.
Okay.
And again, you just said that you were about to turn 30, and I think that for most women out there, there has been the narrative and talk about the biological clock, especially as women enter their 30s. Would you agree?
All the time. I think the biological clock has been spoken to me about since I was about 18. You better get married. You better have children.
Yeah.
You're going to die.
Yeah, literally. It was really hard because I think there was a lot of a toxic narrative, I have to be honest, especially growing up in a Middle Eastern background. There was very much this narrative around you need to get married and have kids before you're 30 because that's what the prime is of beauty. And
Correct.
then if you're beyond 30, a man won't find you desirable and you may not be able to have kids. And then from my dad's perspective, because he's a gynecologist, he was like literally talking about like being a geriatric mother and the increased risk of like pregnancy, diabetes. And it was like, oh my God, my dad was literally like, Rhona, this is not good. You know, I was like, I can't deal.
But interesting you said that because I've had the same pressure. I remember somebody came round so distinctly and I was 26 or 27, one of those ages. I think I was 26. And she came round and she said, are you with someone? I said, no. And she goes, but you only have 2 years. And I said, till what? And then she goes, until your prime is over. And I looked at her in complete shock and was so upset that she said that at the age of 29 I would be ugly. Well, I hope I haven't lost my prime.
Yeah.
And I remember someone said, but do you want to be an old bride? And I was like, I've got thousands of Indian beauty bridal shoots, so even if I am an old ugly bride, I'll just pretend that was my wedding day. And there was this huge pressure to get married and have children. There still is. You know, everyone constantly says, oh God, you better hurry up and get married so you can have kids. However, there has been absolutely no conversation by anyone I know about freezing your eggs.
Do you know, thinking about as well, because obviously, as I said, I know that you come from an Indian culture, but that was really sadly somebody that I went to school with, and she went on to Bollywood and she took her own life whilst she was in Bollywood, and she was 26. And one of her biggest anxieties and worries was that she wasn't married by 26 and she was deemed to be too old, especially when she was being scrutinised by that industry. And she was incredibly beautiful. And it's really sad. And I think it's really, really sad because particularly I think, you know, people say like things have changed, times have changed. They have to an extent, but I think people really ignore that some of these deep-rooted pressures are just so ingrained. It's almost like a generational, like, I wouldn't want to say trauma, but, you know, like, it's so deeply ingrained. Like, try Shivani explaining stuff to your grandmother. Do you know what I mean? She's not going to care.
Of course.
She's not woke. You know what I mean? So I think it's difficult. But with regards to times changing, you know, we're spending longer choosing the right partner. For me, one of the most important things for me was making sure that the person that I have a baby with is going to be a good father. And that takes time, especially in this world and in this society. People forget that. Of course, women are spending more and more time on their careers and they don't feel ready. And some people may choose not even to have children, and that's completely their own prerogative. But I think for me, I'd reached 32. I was in a healthy relationship. And my father was the one that said to me, you need to think about freezing your eggs if you're not going to have kids in the next year or two. And I wasn't ready to have kids at that point. I just didn't feel ready.
How did you feel though when he said that to you? Because someone told me that last year and I was really offended.
But this is the thing that I'm finding. A lot of my friends, when they're told, in the early 30s or
Yeah.
like 29, 30 that you should freeze your eggs, they're really offended. But for me, do you know what I think it is, Shivani? And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm being presumptuous. If you get offended by that comment, you are worried. On some level, you're worried that you might not meet somebody, and you think like...
I'm in a relationship.
Yeah.
I was when that person told me. I just think it's so weird to say to a 29-year-old, you should freeze your eggs. When I'm in a long-term relationship, that's what I found really strange.
I tell you what it is. If you take it out from a completely... You're treating this as an emotional thing.
Correct.
And that's why I
Yeah.
took out the emotions. Because with my father, he's a gynecologist, right?
Yeah.
So I work in medicine, dentistry, whatever. So I have always had the luxury of being like, I am informed. That even both my parents had cancer, by the way, when I was growing up. It was really difficult at different points in my life, in my 20s. But it's difficult and awful and hideous, like the worst time of my life. I had to go in with like a kind of like biological brain,
Yeah.
because otherwise you just lose your mind. So again, with my dad hounding me, I was like, okay, let's talk about it. And I did the research, and the quality and quantity of your eggs decreases, and it changes substantially in your early 30s in comparison to your late 30s. And I know friends that, yes, then by the time they're 38, 39, they were like, okay, let's freeze now. The number of eggs that they got was so much lower than if you did it when you were younger. So
why shouldn't you do it if you're in your mid-20s then?
Well, you could in theory, but I have to say that I'm not going to pretend it was all roses. So the whole experience for me was really, really difficult emotionally. And sometimes when I speak to some of my female friends that did it when they were like 38, 37, they were like, I'd cry, I'd be putting these injections and hormones into my body, and I'd be there in tears. Number one, because I thought, like, is this going to be my life? I don't have a partner to help me, support me through like these sort of changes.
Exactly.
I didn't think I was going to be alone, in my late 30s. And it's something that's really difficult, and because we don't have the conversations and don't offer the support, women just don't feel supported. And at the end of the day, we are living in a different world, and it is more difficult to find a partner if that's what you wish to do. But from a hormonal point of view, oh my gosh, it was horrible. So the idea is that you get different types of hormones. I'm going to actually have a look here, because obviously I want to make sure that everybody understands this. Ovaries are actually exposed to aging.
Okay.
I don't know if you knew that. Okay.
No.
So like all parts of our body, our ovaries also experience changes, right? And it makes sense, right? Because every
course.
part, our hair, our
Yes.
skin,
Yeah.
why wouldn't our ovaries experience changes as well, right? So as you become older, the increase of miscarriages also increases, and the increase of chromosomal abnormalities as well, and things like that, right?
Why?
So it's just because of what happens, just like on a genetic level, because of what's happening with your chromosomes as part of aging,
Got it.
more mutations, etc., etc. Rate of miscarriage also increases beyond 35, okay? So I'm talking as well, like, for me as well, it's quite an emotional thing to talk about, because I'm 36 now, and I'm like, this is why I feel the pressure to kind of really think about things. But when I went, I was 32. I had my blood test done and my scans done. For anyone that is around that kind of age, I would recommend that you go get that done. Why? Because it's empowering. Just to go and understand that your ovaries are this is how many eggs you have, etc., etc. Extremely empowering. And I know a friend of mine that unfortunately was diagnosed with menopause, early onset menopause, very rare at 34.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
So basically, it means that she really can't have children. Her eggs were basically diminished. She had 2 eggs left. So they took 2, and she got pregnant with 1. So she has 1 child. So now
Great.
she's really, really, really passionate about the whole conversation, because she's
And the
like, everyone should
education
do.
piece, yeah.
She's actually Indian as well, so she had all of that pressure. But she's like, it's so important. And she doesn't look like someone, because when you think of menopause, what do you think? What do you think? Be honest.
Someone who's like 60.
Correct, yeah. So that's not what happened with her. But she was like, if I didn't know, and if I didn't push myself to understand, I wouldn't have then, been like, right, we need to do this. And it was grueling, but she was like, it showed me the importance of freezing eggs, because I wouldn't have been in that position. So for me, it's a safety insurance, right? It's a safety insurance that some people don't want to have kids, but if you do freeze your eggs and you choose later on, like we know Jennifer Aniston, we talked about that, you can use the eggs.
I think it's really scary though, Rhona. I think we're skipping a little bit here, because there will be people watching and listening to this that will say it's a privilege. It costs between £5,000 to £10,000.
Correct, it does.
So it's not really like such a viable option for so many people. It's not just around the mental expectation. It's not really just about the kind of mental emotion. I think it's really hard to say.
Financial.
Yeah, it's financial, but it's really difficult to say I'm going to go freeze my eggs right now, because I think the reason why I found it so scary was you almost feel your body is not going to work. And I understand that you're saying, look, you can't expect, it's a biological clock, you can't expect to be a superhuman and you can't feel offended. But there is some part of it that doesn't feel natural.
I agree. And I think that that's the difficult conversation, especially because I'm not your cookie cutter medic / dentist, because I very much believe in Eastern, Western medicine, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think that the way that the world is, like, let's be honest, okay? In like primal ages, we think about the caveman ages. Women were having kids at like 13, 14 because they were dying at like 30. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Literally.
35, like literally. So you forget that, because the moment that a woman menstruates, that's when she's ready essentially to have a kid, you know? Mad. So it's just mad, exactly.
Yeah.
But like, think times are changing and we are living longer. So we have to accommodate for that. And I think realistically, the terms of having a healthy baby or being able to get pregnant or meeting that life partner, if you choose to have a life partner or have a baby with a life partner, could happen at 42, you know? And if you choose to have a child and it's more difficult, you know, you've got that option. So for me, yes, I agree, the financial. But again, it's all about what you place value on, Shivani, because the cost of doing the egg freezing, say 5 to 10,000, that could be the same as a teeth smile makeover. And I know people will put themselves on finance plans, or a 5 to 10,000, that could be like 3 holidays in the year. So what do you prioritize? What do you value? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it's not something that's covered on the NHS, obviously under rare circumstances. For example, you're going through cancer treatment, etc., trauma, all that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's what you place value on. And I do know some people now that are like, I'm on a finance plan to pay for it, because they want to make sure that they're doing it. And this, you just got to understand, biologically and factually, it is more successful the younger you are. It is what it is, you know. And unfortunately,
it's a difficult conversation though, because I think it's, well, especially for me, I never grew up having that. So the first time when someone says it, it's almost like really scary to think, wait, why do you think I should freeze my eggs? And I was very much like,
offended.
Wait, what? Yeah, I was offended. I was so confused, because also the person that told me it was 31 and also didn't have a baby and hasn't frozen her eggs. So I was very confused. I was looking at her like, okay, interesting. But I think it's genuinely because I'm not familiar with the conversation. No one has ever spoken to me about it. No one's ever told me about it. And it really isn't spoken about. Women don't go around saying, I frozen my eggs. You know, everyone should do it. But I do agree with you. If you're privileged enough and you have the capability and you have the means and you do want to start a family in the future, the younger you do it, the better.
Totally. And the other thing is that I do think that people need to recognise, so going back, because I know we didn't talk about it in detail, the hormone situation is really hard. You basically have your body hyperstimulated to release the eggs. You're injecting yourself. You're going for blood tests and scans every single day. You're talking to the nurse, 2 weeks. So you have to do it like straight after you've finished menstruating. And then they take the eggs under sedation. So you're like kind of semi-conscious. I actually didn't remember. I was like completely knocked out. And they took 19 eggs in one go and every single egg was healthy. Wow. And that's a really good result. But also at the same time, I do believe that it's good because I'm 32. One of my hormones, AH, one of the hormones, was actually declining a little bit because of my age as well. So I discovered that. And now I know that I have this sort of like safety assurance for the time that I'm ready. And that's that. And I think it's a conversation that we need to keep having.
I agree. I think one of the things I've realised as I've gotten older, and I've only realised this because some of my friends are going through it now, is you presume you can just have a baby. And my friends recently said this to me as well. They said, people forget you have to try for a year. It's because when you're younger...
Oh, some people do fall pregnant, like quickly.
For sure. But when you're younger, you are taught, oh my God, be protected because you're going to have a baby. And then a lot of people realise...
It's like someone will look at you and you're pregnant. Like,
yeah, literally. And so there's so much focus around protection. You know, we're taught around protecting yourselves in school. What we're not taught around is how difficult it can be for some people to have a baby. And like you said, you know, it's really important to just go and get a check done, to go and make sure you're okay in general, even if you're not trying to have a baby.
That's what I mean. And I think this is what I said to you. I think that when people get really triggered by the comments, it is some kind of like defense, because we feel that we've got to protect ourselves in some way. And it's
not really, Rhona. It's just if you think of someone, like for me, for my example, I was defensive because I've never heard the conversation before.
Okay.
So I was so confused by it, and I felt that someone was saying to me that I'm getting old.
Yeah.
Because I thought in my head egg freezing is for old people.
Correct.
Do you see?
Yeah, but that's a trigger.
That's what I'm saying. It's my uneducation. Because I haven't been told like you should freeze your eggs when you're young, because being in your 30s is young. Yeah. For me, it's like you should freeze your eggs when you're 40. Yeah. I mean, when I'm 40, I'm going to say 40 is young. But, you know, as a 20-year-old, you are going to think it's strange. And that's what I'm saying. It's like we're not educated about it.
I think there's so many things when it comes to female health that we're not educated in. Like
so many.
It's heartbreaking. Also, like I had friends that went through miscarriage, and it was like a taboo.
It was
really a taboo. And imagine what you go through when that happens to you, and it's like we don't talk about it. And also in terms of actually getting pregnant, like there's also a sperm to be considered. Yeah. There's those difficulties, like you said, like people that can't just fall pregnant.
Exactly.
There's so many things that happen within female health. Menopause as well. Yeah. Pre-menopause, you know.
And people who have had, you know, cancer, for example, some of them have that gene passed on to them, and that means that they can't have babies. And if you're connected to someone was telling me about that. It's really scary. But what's interesting is you can freeze an egg and you can freeze an embryo.
I know that because I chose to freeze my eggs.
And not an embryo.
Correct. And I'll tell you
why. What's the difference for people who don't know?
So basically the eggs are the eggs, the embryo is when it's fertilised, so it's been fertilised by sperm. So either you choose a sperm donor, and I could have chosen my boyfriend as well. So first of all, at that point, we'd been together for like a year, and I didn't actually want to put the pressure, but also from a legal point of view. Do you know about this?
No.
So do you remember Sofia Vergara from is it Family? Oh, babes, you know.
Oh yeah, that really
Latino,
Latino woman. Yeah, amazing. I love her. Gorgeous.
So, you know, she froze her embryos with her like hot young boyfriend at the time. They broke up, and she was like 42, and it was her last chance to have kids, and she wanted to use the embryos. They went to court and everything, and he wouldn't let her use them because you need the consent of both of the people to use the embryos. Of course, because
it's their baby.
Because it's also like an embryo, like, and you know, like Sofia Vergara, she's like, I can bring this kid up on my own. Do you know what I mean? Like,
my gosh, so yeah, that's so sad.
So sad. So I was like, I don't want to be in that situation. I don't want a legal feud with somebody about this. Like, my eggs are my eggs. However, from a scientific point of view, embryos have more chance of taking rather than the eggs. And the eggs, it's all about the thawing, it's all about the freezing and the way that the freezing process is done. But now they've basically changed the freezing process. That means that the eggs have also a very high chance of living on. However, did you also know that you can only keep them in the UK? I think, but I might be wrong, for 10 years.
You better move on.
Yeah, so also, but sperm, guess what?
What?
Can be, if you freeze your sperm.
Oh, of course it can.
Yeah, like,
shock horror. The eggs have to be used within this sell-by date, but the sperm can live forever. Like, just typical. Okay, by the way, I've completely forgot to ask you the most obvious question. What the hell does freezing your eggs mean? Because how do you then produce a baby? Talk me through the process, ma'am. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's why I picked up my phone, because I had all my notes from the hospital appointments. Okay, so.
No, you freeze your eggs, and then what happens?
Okay, so fine. So then you've got your eggs. The eggs are in the freezer.
Right, which freezer?
Like,
in the hospital?
Like 19 Dr. Rhonas.
In your freezer at your home?
No, they're kept at the facility.
I know they're not in your freezer. Filling out the chips.
You should have seen my mum's face. One day I was literally like, what if I defrost them and sell them for really a premium price? My mum lost it. She was like, my DNA ain't going anywhere. You're going to have these babies, like literally.
So you freeze them, they're in a hospital.
So what I assume is, I actually don't know in terms of like the because I'm obviously not there, is that if you choose to have the eggs, I'm assuming that your partner's sperm is then going to be used. They do the process of then getting the sperm from your partner, and then they actually fertilise it in the lab. Okay. And then they implant it into you. But it doesn't mean it's going to take. So it's very similar to IVF. It's pretty much IVF. So what happens is then they put it in your body, and it's whether your body takes it or not. And as you probably know from people that have had IVF, some eggs take, some don't. Some have twins, some have triplets and quadruplets. You know what I mean? Because loads take.
Oh my God, please have quadruplets. I'm so happy for you. My an absolute nightmare as well. Having 4 sets of hormones.
Literally.
Just have to pause the podcast.
Yeah, literally. They could all come, babes. So it could be like the millennial mind.
Sorry, another question I was going to ask you. Another stupid question, maybe. Can you try now to have a baby, or are your eggs gone?
No, not at all. Because what happens is that you know,
really stupid,
because you know, like what happened to you in biology, mate? Did you pass?
Tell science is one of my worst things at school. So I'm like, hold on, could you fall pregnant now?
But that's the whole point of like our cycles, you know, like our menstrual cycle.
I don't know. Okay, no stupid is a non-stupid question. I mean, no stupid question.
So what the whole thing of so when you're ovulating is when you're the most fertile. So during your ovulation is ideally when you and your partner should be trying. It's correct.
So the eggs are there as a backup. So you would try first.
Of course.
Got it. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like eggs are your eggs.
So I always say it's a little bit like, if we're going to think pragmatically about it, it's like having insurance.
Fair enough.
You know, I mean, it's like having insurance. And at the end of the day, like look, if you're in a position where you and your partner can't also have a baby and you choose to go down the IVF route, it's pretty much the same.
And what about surrogacy? Kind of the same?
No. Surrogacy is when you have...
Yeah, I do know what surrogacy
Okay, good.
means. Sorry, I meant like if you were planning to use a surrogate, should you freeze your eggs and the sperm?
If you had a surrogate anyways, like Kim K did, remember? Yeah. They grab her egg, they take the sperm of the relevant person and they implant it into the surrogate.
So it's the same process, and it might take or might not take.
Yeah, correct. But also some women, as you say, like if they can't get pregnant, yes, you may use a donor. So there's so many complicated terms for everything, you know?
Also, if you don't want to have a baby, if you don't want to hold the baby and you want to 100% use a surrogate, freeze your eggs early on, no?
I think so, but at the same time is that you can use a surrogate. Like some surrogates are used for medical reasons, and some, like Kim K, was hers medical? I'm sure it wasn't.
I think so.
Are you sure?
Yeah, if I was rich enough, maybe I wouldn't.
Your fiance's going to break up with you after saying that. Like,
I discussed it with him. He was like, absolutely not.
No, yeah.
He's also not my fiance, by the way.
Okay, sorry.
Where did that come from?
Oh my God, Freudian slip. Clearly, like, manifesting that.
What the hell? I just discussed that with him. He said, I absolutely would not want to use a surrogate, so no. And then I told him
if you are listening.
I also told him the price of it, and he was...
Isn't it like 100K, isn't it? I think I'm pretty sure it is.
I can start from like...
But obviously, like same-sex relationships and marriages, when people choose to have a child, then they'll have to have a surrogate.
Yes. So expensive. Madness.
Yeah.
But I kind of get why it's so expensive, because it's such a big change to
the body. But I have to say, it's something that you don't want to take lightly. It is a toll on your body, emotionally, hormonally. I literally doubled in size, and it took me 6 months to lose. Oh my gosh, if I tell you the photos, which obviously was a lot, you know, I really didn't know it was happening. And then I caught COVID a week later, so I was really sick.
So it is a big commitment. It's not something we should just say, like, everyone freeze their eggs.
Totally. It's something that you don't. And also, you know, look, there is train of and again, I'm not expressing my own views, but there are some people out there that say, and including my friends, because I've had frank conversations as a doctor, I've been like, look, this is what you should consider. They go, but you know what, Rhona, if I don't meet that right person, I don't want to have a baby on my own, and if I don't meet them and I've missed my time, I'd rather adopt.
Yes.
You know, and they take that view, and they're like, I don't want to interfere with nature, because actually what's meant to be will be. And I get that as well.
I don't know how I feel about I don't want to interfere with nature's what will be, because we could say that about everything. I think you should...
But you know those people that don't want to interfere with their bodies?
I get that, if you don't want to interfere with your body, because like you're saying, there's such a big hormonal change, and there's such a big impact on your mental health as well, and on your well-being. So I definitely understand that. If people don't want to inject loads of things into their body, they just want to be like, what's meant to be will be. I do understand that, but I also think that you shouldn't have this outlook of what's meant to be is what will be. If you really want to have a baby, you should kind of maybe take that precaution. Again, if you're privileged enough to do it.
Correct.
It is a privilege,
but also a lot of clinics now understand that privilege, and they do provide financial options and support, just like everything else. You know, like in terms of, as I said, teeth, surgery, etc.
I think our takeaway from this podcast is obviously just to spread the awareness around it, because growing up it wasn't something that was talked about. You're the only person I know that has done that, and I'm really grateful that you shared your experience today, because I think it will help a lot of people to see a different side that they perhaps haven't been educated on, because we're not taught about this in school.
Take the shame away. As women, we need to just stop, and we just need to take the shame away from these conversations. This is biology, this is our bodies, you know, and, you know, procreating life and the difficulties of it, etc. So we really need to have these conversations and make the informed decisions that are right for us.
100%. Thank you.
Thank you.